Welcome to a mobile learning guide for business law students. My name is Eden Gringard, and today's 5-minute presentation will concern mobile learning. Our learning objectives for this presentation are to describe global mobile learning trends, define affordability and affordances, recognize educational approaches, understand uses of mobile technologies, and mitigate drawbacks of mobile devices in learning. As we can see in the image from Data Reportal, the uses of mobile devices have increased by a minimum of 80 million people for those who have just now started to use mobile devices. As someone who lives in the global north, in the high-income country of Australia, mobile devices are more available to my peers and I than students living in the global south. However, this image evidences the increasing availability of mobile devices and the internet globally, which is encouraging for the prospect of more mobile devices being used in the future. The availability of mobile devices brings us to the next topic, affordability and affordances. Affordability is whether something can be purchased depending on the individual's financial situation, and affordance is the functionality and features of a device. In the global north where I live, devices are more prevalent as people are generally more affluent than those in the global south. An example of a device with high affordance but low affordability is an Apple Watch, and a device that has high affordability but low affordance is a conventional watch that simply tells the time. Understanding what mobile devices are accessible in different areas globally is important to understand what approaches are available to an individual for their learning, which brings us to educational approaches. In business law, information transmission is one of the most prevalent educational approaches. Information transmission is an approach where information is viewed as simplistic and transferable from one person or object to another person. For instance, there is a large amount of reading in business law and long lectures to view. Behaviorism is also common. Behaviorism proposes that students learn through conditioning, sometimes through reward-based learning. For instance, quizzes are commonly used in business law to test students' recollection of cases. Performing well means the student will receive a high mark, which feels rewarding, which conditions them. Finally, social constructivism proposed by the psychologist Lev Vygotsky is used. Social constructivism involves students forming their own knowledge and using students' social environment to enrich their knowledge. Through group revelation and solving complex real-life situations, such as analyzing legal cases, social constructivism is demonstrated when studying business law. It is important to recognize how to use mobile technologies in an educational way to enforce these learning approaches. Mind mapping, ebooks, educational apps, and augmented reality (AR) are technologies used educationally in business law. Mind maps can be used to create visual connections between legal cases and areas, as shown here. They can be used collaboratively where students can demonstrate their ideas and create visual connections together, enforcing social constructivism. Ebooks can be used anywhere, making the learner mobile as they can read their textbook on a bus or while they're walking around before class. This website states that this textbook, once purchased online, can be accessed on multiple online devices, which essentially allows the reader to have multiple online copies of the textbook. Apps such as Notion can assist tremendously with learning content and studying. It allows students to organize their notes neatly and by week, as shown by snapshots of my notes. It has a toggle function, which is a triangular-shaped button, as shown, that reveals information when pressed. Students can test themselves on their understanding and memorization of content using this function. Additionally, notes can be downloaded and shared with friends, so students can test each other, which demonstrates a collaborative social constructivist way of learning. Augmented reality can be used by business law students and lawyers themselves. In future, AR could simulate court cases and even go as far as to simulate the emotions of jurors themselves, as evidenced by this quote from Jackson, a lawyer, quote, "In addition to joining our trial via the VAR's trial program, each juror will be given and wear the VAR's sensory device, which will allow counsel and the judge to sense what the jurors are feeling and thinking," unquote. This AR technology could assist lawyers in times of lockdown, instigated by the COVID-19 pandemic, to simulate a real-life court. Additionally, business law students could practice arguing a case in court using AR. Though the future of mobile devices is exciting, there are dangers and drawbacks that need to be mitigated. Here are 3 tips for mitigating the drawbacks of mobile devices. Firstly, to maintain a secure and safe online presence, have passwords that are difficult to guess. For physical drawbacks, such as eye strain, take breaks from using your mobile devices and go outside, or study in other ways such as reading a physical book. Finally, to maintain a mentally healthy mindset, reduce the use of social media on mobile devices, particularly with viewing distressing statistics regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Minimize social media use to reduce emotional distress. Here is the peer feedback I received to improve my presentation, which can be read here and on the next slide, along with my responses and amendments. Lastly, my references can be found here. This brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for listening.